Welcome, 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 welcome to the untold story of Marico from the man himself. Welcome each one of you. Rupak and myself, Praveen, are the two hosts. Rupak, over to you.
Thank you very much, Praveen. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So, before we get to talking to the man himself, let me introduce Praveen, my co host. Praveen is an outlier marketer and a raconteur. He's also an author of 9 books and a member of the first ASCENT Trust Group in Chennai.
Lovely. Rupak, it's my turn to introduce Rupak. Rupak is a producer and a media entrepreneur and a member of the inaugural group of ASCENT Trust Groups from 2012.
If I can add, I'm also the only person in this conversation not to have written a book yet.
So, Rupak, in a way, it is Harsh that brought us together. I first met Harsh and I also interacted with you through ASCENT. My business has been on the ASCENT as well ever since I joined, I should add, Touchwood. How are you doing?
Well, I have to say that, it's not been too bad, in spite of prevailing conditions over the past year and a half or two. I used to, when I look around, I think that last year at least, when I used to look at it on a scale of good, bad, and terrible, I would say we were still good. But all that said, I think, it was a time for us to really understand, the harsh realities around us. And
Rupak, hold on. I'm going to disagree with you. I've got it right. It is harsh realities and not harsh realities.
No, Praveen. Harsh is his name. It is harsh realities.
Oh, Harsh, the person, the founder, the entrepreneur, the maverick who brought Marico from where it was to where it is today. It is about Harsh, the joy and the realities therein.
But isn't he trying to bring out the harsh realities and show us what life is about?
You and I can continue the debate, or we can bring the man himself and ask Harsh. Rupak. What do you say?
Absolutely. Let's bring him on.
Harsh, if you can come in, please, and solve this problem for us. Is it harsh reality or harsh realities?
So I must compliment the ASCENT member who I'm sure is listening to this conversation. His name is Alim Merchant, and I think Archana Das had thrown this contest open to a few people. She thought they could suggest a name, and I got lots and lots of names, but this name really stood out. And I have been getting lots of positive feedback about the name. So many people who have seen the name as well as the book cover, which is also very innovative, have commented very, very positively on that. So I have to thank ASCENT and especially Alim for making this happen. And some other members also participate, but this really stood out. And the name is actually a pun on my name, Harsh. It is Harsh Reality.
Excellent.
Rupak, round one to you. Round one.
Well, I would say it's a bit of both. I think, and Harsh has been extremely transparent, and I do agree. I mean, the name and I don't think you could have come up with a better name, and congratulations to Alim for suggesting that. Before we dive into it, which I'd like to right away, just before that, I just want to say that everyone over here, we've got a large audience. We'd like you guys all to participate. Please put in your comments in the chat, questions, etc. We'll be throwing it open after a few questions back and forth between the three of us. We'll be throwing it open to questions from the audience. And also, please do share on social. Use the hashtags which have been shared, which are being shared in the chat right now. I won't say them right now. There they are. It's hashtag harsh realities and hashtag learn from doers. Also, do tag the ASCENT handles on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is that you intend to. Please do share. If I can request the ASCENT team to also share that as well. Right.
And Rupak, if I may add, we are in India and nothing can work without incentives. Harsh will also be talking about how he incentivized the entire distribution chain. But the incentive for the most enthusiastic participant and the question, there are 3 prizes up, a signed copy of Harsh Realities. Rupak, Harsh Realities, I'm changing that myself. By the man himself will find your way. So go ahead, use the chat window. Back to you, Rupak.
Yes, and not 1, not 2, but is it 3? We're giving out three.
Yes.
3 copies of Harsh Realities. So please do participate. Thank you. And, it's interesting that you're talking about, whether it was Harsh and I said it's Harsh. And the fact is that, we know these two, one as Harsh's name and the other as what the word harsh means. But somewhere in the forward, and I'm sorry, I should have done a better job of remembering who it was, but someone does mention that let's not forget that the word Harsh, for those of us whose Hindi or Sanskrit may not be great, the word Harsh actually means joy, if I'm not mistaken, and that's a name. So let's not forget about that part. Getting into the first question, I mean, it's really about the genesis, Harsh, and I think that what I'm sure I want to know, and Praveen wants to know, and our audience definitely would want to know, is that how long has this book been inside you? Is it something that you thought, after you moved into a chairman role and moved out of and moved into a different phase of life that you wanted to write? Or was it something that was percolating inside of you all along saying, I'm going to write that book, I'm going to write that book when I'm putting my feet up a little bit and doing different things?
So you're right. The seeds of writing a book came much earlier, before I stepped down. And whenever I spoke at an event, a lot of people came to me and said, why don't you capture your journey in a book so that it can be relevant to many people? So that's the time when I heard that multiple times, I said that, okay, now is the time for me to write. Now, when to write happened when I stepped down. So the initial, shall I say, nudges came from a lot of people, many times. And that made me decide to write the book. And then when I stepped down, I had some time also. So combination of both the suggestions as well as time availability at my end made the book happen.
Right. Jumping in, Harsh, how did this collaboration with Ramcharan come about? Of course, when you read the book, you've been with him together for a long time.
Yeah. Yes.
I love the interludes and the insights that followed, but I'm quite keen and curious to know how this collaboration came about for the book.
Yeah. So I've known Ram for many years. I've known him for the last 30 years or so, and I'm very close to him as individually. And he is there for me anytime I need him. And somebody suggested, some family, one family friend whom I know well, that, okay, the book, I wanted the book to be much better than what it was at that time. So he suggested that, why don't you ask Ram to co-author with you? And I was a little reluctant, but he said, why don't you try? So I said, okay, I'll try. And within 1 second, he agreed. So it was phenomenal. It just happened that he agreed, and he's a very busy man. He works like 24/7, if not 24/7, at least 365 days a year. That's for sure. I know he works 365 days a year. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't have a home. So, the fact that he spent so much time on the book itself was, it was great for me, because what was he getting out of it? He has written 30 books in his own journey. They've sold more than 4 million copies cumulative, which is like, in India, they say if you sell 10,000 copies, it's a bestseller. So here, each of his book must be selling maybe 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh, 1 million copies. So I think he's a renowned world author. And I think having him on board played a very important role, because I was very keen to write the book in a story format, which makes it very light for readers to read. And then at the end of each chapter, he gives insight.
At this point, I'm going to ask a question to Rupak. You've also read the book multiple times. What is your key takeaway from the book? Harsh is also here.
Before Rupak steps in, I had given a copy of the earlier manuscript, which was like almost 6-8 months. The book has gone a lot of changes post that. And I must compliment my wife, because the pandemic really helped me in improving the book substantially, because it was earlier hardcore business book, and now it's turned into like a story format. It's very readable. I have given it to wives of my friends. I just met somebody who ordered the book, finished reading, and he said, I've given my 10-year son has started reading, and he's finding it very interesting. So what I'm trying to say, it's very easy read, and it's in a story format. And then at the end of each chapter, Ram gives 1 or 2 page insight in terms of what is the relevance of that to the reader. And there are multiple suggestions on various topics. So I can assure you one thing to the reader, that there is a lot of take-home value for the book. I can bet if somebody doesn't find a take-home value, I am willing to refund money if they buy something. And so I'm absolutely 100% sure that there are lots and lots of take-home values for an individual, which are captured at the end of, and it's very nice, very easy reading. And those who have read it based on whatever, I've seen the reviews on Amazon, about 10 reviews, all 5-star. Plus, many of my friends, they all have really felt that the book has come out very well. And I must thank my wife for adding a substantial value to the book by the emotional side, by more anecdotes, by more, I think just life in the book has come in, and that's different than what Rupak may have read it earlier. So Rupak, over to you.
No, so Harsh, you're right. But I have to say, even when I read it earlier, which was in a Word document, I found the book to be really engaging. And even now, when I read it again, the same part of the book gripped me in the same way. Yes, you're right. I think Archana has done a great job in terms of contributing to bringing the human aspect and enhancing the human aspect and augmenting the human aspect in terms of making it, I would say, storytelling in a way, right?
Yes.
And that's actually precisely what I found interesting about the chapter, which is called, I believe it's the chapter on the family separation. It's called Agony and Ecstasy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that chapter, okay, so for me, first of all, for context, for our audience over here, I am completely far removed from a family business. I'm perhaps the first entrepreneur in my entire family. Yet it resonated with me so much because it read like a thrilling drama script. I mean, the highs and lows, what you went through in that time, and the way you've actually told that story, you can feel your pain and anguish and up and down and up and down and up and down from day to day in that period, right? So to me, that part is perhaps my favorite chapter in the book. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you were feeling, when you were writing that? Because it's not easy also, right? Because when you're telling the story, I'm sure you had to walk a thin line also between not really, bringing out too much about the family, etc. Yet you were quite transparent. You did it very well. So please tell us.
Yeah. So this was a big challenge. Actually, one of the big challenges, Rupak, you rightly put it, is how to cover that in a story format, which at one level is very transparent. At the same time, it should not hurt the family, So I had to, I did it in a manner where I didn't name any individuals. I had difference of opinions with some family members, which led to our separation. But I have not gone into details in terms of who were the members and all. So I think it's important because our relationships at post that have improved and we are back to normal. I don't want that to happen. I was not trying to gossip, but I was just trying to. So it is not at all in a gossipy mode. It's more into a mode what can happen in a family in terms of a difference of opinion, which may lead to a family separation in terms of financial interest, and how does one negotiate that within the family was the key learning for many of the business which are family businesses. This is inevitable in any family. I mean, the first phase of my issues with the family was to allow me to start taking the business from Bombay Oil to Marico, and that itself took 2 to 3 years. So there it was dealing with elders, my father and my uncles, how to convince them. It was a big challenge. It took 2 to 3 years for me, but if I had not done that, I would have been struggling managing the family issues. So it was worth spending 2-3 years, and to me that was the most important decision in my journey. Otherwise, I would Marico would not have been there. And then the second was the actual difference of opinion within the family, which led to a separation. And then how the role of mediator is very, very important. A mediator who can be trusted by the whole family, which acts as some sort of a constraint in terms of behavior and sticking to your stance once you're taken rather than going on shifting, So I believe that there is a lot of learnings for especially those who are in family to how to deal with family issues. It's very important. You can't ignore it. Family can be a source of great asset, great value add, but sometimes if it is not managed well, it can go on the other side, So I think I had to bring in that balance, and that's what I believe I have been able to do. I have to check with my family members whether is it on the right track. People should. It's captured in a way without going into, shall I say, as I said, it's not meant for gossip. It is more learning oriented.
Yeah, I think that's come out very clearly, and I'm about to ask Praveen the same question. But before I do that, I think one of the things that struck me, and I don't know if you would use these words exactly, but you did talk about the importance of those conversations, right? Because one thing that we always do, and I think as an entrepreneur, one learns this, that the value of having those crucial conversations when they are meant to happen
Yes.
is immense. And often enough in your early years, you make that mistake of pushing those conversations down the line because they're difficult to have. But I think that really came out also in that part. And
True.
maybe,
True.
yeah.
Yeah.
Praveen, so back to you. What's your favorite part of the book? What was your favorite chapter?
I can tell you here. I'm going to read it out. Page 101. Praveen to talk to Harsh to see if this can be rewritten as a short story with characters, locations, and timelines. The ebb and flow. Total Hollywood movie up and down from that page onwards that I've written. My favorite chapters are chapter 12 and 13. Organization for Growth in Angels and Predators. I will tell you about my takeaway a bit later. But Harsh and Rupak, I love books. I'm a part of multiple book clubs. I host 2 book clubs myself. And across various parameters that we rate books is on the book cover. So like a kid with a birthday cake, I ordered the Kindle. Kindle came in a week earlier, and then I fell in love all over again when I saw the hard copy. And for all you listeners out here, I would shamelessly say, go pick up the hard copy. I'm going to show you what it is and then ask Harsh a question. You can see the confusion that I had with Rupak. And this is a transparent cover that comes through. There is transparency across the book. There is a lot of talk about failures. The bookmark is something that keeps reminding you what it is. So Harsh, my question is in 2 parts, but the first part, this is absolutely marvelous. The book cover and the idea and the execution, where did that come from? How did it happen? Because I'm in love with it.
So normally when you write a book, you go to a publisher and they come with a design. And in this case, I went to the publisher, they came with design. I also threw it open to ASCENT members. They came up with a design, but I was not happy. And then through my dialogues with some other individuals who are in books, and I used to talk a lot to Anil Darkar, who passed away, unfortunately, a few months back. He has written books. He used to conduct the Tata Lit Festival. And he said that he knows somebody who only specializes in book covers. She only does book covers, nothing else, and innovative book covers. So I met her. Her name is Priya Pereira. She ex-advertising, and she and her husband, Neil, I think they were in O&M, I don't remember which agency. And she only does book covers. So when I approached her, she spent a lot of time with me. She read the whole book. And then she said, okay, I have to reflect Harsh on the book cover. So that's why the book cover has come, which is actually, it shows 3 ways. One is that it is transparent and open, which I am as an individual. And it is innovative because, the way you showed the book cover and the plastic. So it is also innovative. And I think that's captured very well. So I'm happy that, I was able to do, apart from the book written matter, the right name and the right cover. So all in all, it's a good package, which has turned out to be. And I'm getting very good feedback, as I said, about not only the name of the book cover. Other people have not read it, but the first reaction when they get the book is, wow, the name is good, the cover is good. So at least to some extent, people are forced to, they are in a positive state of mind in terms of taking it further,
And Harsh, if I may add, I'm a book lover. My daughters are also book lovers to the extent that we don't like the dog ears. We don't like anybody tampering with the book. So that is a significant part for the plastic, that it protects the book, because this is something that we've got to hold on. But the second part on
one more thing I wanted to say, Praveen, this book, the plastic is recyclable. I was very keen that the plastic should not add to the environmental damage. So this plastic is recyclable. So it's just whatever it is worth now.
Lovely. Yeah. But on the transparency front, I'm going to ask you a question. You, of course, have covered it inside. I loved the failures that you have spoken about. But one I would want you to briefly narrate for the rest of the audience is the failure of Bissell toothpaste. I was never aware that Marico came out with it. I'm not going to ask you about the plastic packaging because everybody is aware of that. That's become an urban legend now, which has been written now. But tell us about the Bissell toothpaste experiment.
So this happened very early in Bombay old days, in 80s, And as you know, and I've not studied management. Nobody has really guided me, or I have learned everything on my own. And a lot of my learning has happened out of failures, because if nobody is teach you, you think something and then you try it out, So in this case, there was a lot of incentive if you manufacture toothpaste in less than 20 people, there was no excise duty, something like 20-25%. And I think that's the reason why I said, okay, let me look at tooth powder. And then there was not very little competition to Colgate. But I think our biggest failure was twofold. One is we underestimated the brand strength of Colgate. Other is we didn't have a proper product development department, and we did something through some trial and error, and the product also was not up to the mark. So the combination of a weak brand and not a good product led to this. But the learnings from them was that I think you have to invest in creating a strong brand. And I mean, you have to look at what competition is, how strong is it, and can you dislodge them? So in this case, a very, very strong brand. And number two, more importantly, product development. Since then, we set up an R&D department, and now we have I think we have 100 people or so, if not 170, 80 people in the R&D function, including packaging development, formulation, working on it. We spend some 30 crores on R&D every year. So I think that mistake led to taking it product development R&D in a very, very serious manner. Now R&D is a source of competitive advantage. We have launched many products which are truly innovative through our own internal work, which have really played a very important role in our growth journey.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. I think, while you were talking, it struck me, and this is something that, as you said, that you didn't have the opportunity to learn in a business school or a management degree, and you were learning on the job. And I think that what was perhaps for you that you perceived to be a weakness, you turned that into a strength because you had the hunger to learn and cover up that gap. And I can testify to it personally, because just for the audience, I know Harsh quite by chance, because when I moved to Bombay after doing B school, when I moved to India, I was in 2005, I used to go to the gym in Bandra, and there was this man who would be in the elliptical next to me, and he would be sweating it out reading Harvard Business School case studies. And I had just freshly come out of my MBA as well. And I was like, I started talking to him because I saw he was reading a case study that I had just done a little bit before that. And so we got talking. And I hadn't lived in India. I didn't know who Harsh Mariwala is. I didn't even know what Marico, I'd heard of the company, all that. Putting two and two together. And when I found out, and I was like, this gentleman really, he spares no moment to learn. And that actually shines through, because somebody else, even in the comments right now in our chat, somebody says the big asset, so someone named A Das has written, the big asset of Harsh sir is he wanted to hire people who knew more than him in their own traits. And that shines through in the book multiple times. You see that, and that's how you build that talent in the organization. And, I think that thinking, and perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about that in terms of how you think about talent. And it even ties to perhaps what is my second favorite chapter in the book, which is about, I forget the name, but it's about, towards the end, about boards and governance, right?
Yes.
Governance, right? And Praveen and I were just talking about this yesterday as well, that when we were preparing, doing a little session pre-read for this, is that, it is unique to have in an Indian company of this kind, and I think somebody also said that if you can, maybe it was Pramit Jhaveri of Citibank who said, name me 5 companies. If you find more than 5, tell me who they are. But Marico is one of the 5 who have done this beautifully, right? So how do you see it? And I'm combining talent who are working in the company with talent that you're assembling to advise you in your board. What is your outlook and your view on this, and how do you approach it? And why is it so important to you, Harsh?
So, because you're in advertising, let me start with the advertising story, because I thought, I had to learn advertising, and how do I advertise my product? So I actually spent my very initial days before I started advertising, spent 1 week with an ad agency in terms of appointing them. Please train me in advertising. Please tell me what is an artwork, what is basics, So I think that really helped me in terms of understanding what kind of advertising works, But coming back to your question of talent, whenever I have had any vacancy, first of all, I'm just a commerce graduate. I have not studied anything more, and it so happened that the family business was a completely family managed business. We didn't have any managers, so there was nobody to guide me. So initially, I used to work with individuals, consultants. We meet them in the evening, go to Ahmedabad in the night, evening flight, come back next morning, discuss the whole thing with a professor at IIM Ahmedabad. So one had to mold one's need for talent learning through what was available, because I couldn't attract good talent. Being Masjid Bandar was like impossible, because if you see the pictures of Masjid Bandar in the book, which is shown, I mean, it's so full of traffic that people just run away before entering the office when they're called for interview. So I used to call them to the Wellington Club, mentally prepare them. This is what it is, and then bring them to the office. So I think what I'm trying to say is you overcome all these limitations of non-availability of talent through innovative ways of doing it, identifying individual consultants and then calling them to the club, and then pushing ultimately to the family that, okay, I want to shift to a new office premise where I'll be able to attract talent. We've had a 5-day week for almost 40 years now. And those days, especially in Masjid Bandar, family managed, 5 days week was like unknown, people were just, so we did that because I was very keen that, when in a city like Bombay, when people waste almost 2 hours daily on an average in commuting, you can't ask people to come for half a day, and at that time it used to be half a day on Saturday. So whenever there has been a vacancy, I always think, is the new person coming in? I have to get a better quality talent. And whenever that has happened, not to say that every time you're able to find, but one other principle I have is when in doubt, out. So if you're not able to wait for some more time rather than going for a compromise decision in terms of talent hiring. So sometimes the vacancy could be there for a long period of time, but all the time your decisions on hiring are always not right, because it has limitations in terms of interviewing. But by and large, whenever things have worked out, and most of the time it has worked out, I've seen a substantial improvement in the organizational performance, whether it is sales or marketing or manufacturing or purchasing. Good talent has played a very, very important role in improving organizational performance. And I think that just got reinforced in me multiple times in my formative years. So that really helped me. And I had not spent anything in capital. We had those 2 factories which were making bulk. I just converted that to branded, and without any capital investment, we were able to do a turnover 80 crores just because of talent, because I myself was not talented. Okay, I got an understanding, I learned from them, but a lot of basic inputs came from them, So I think that just reinforced my belief that I need to have very good talent, which is better than me or whoever was occupying that chair, better than if that person left, better than that person. So it just multiple reinforcements. I strongly feel that talent is the most important factor in any business, but most entrepreneurs don't realize the need for attracting good talent, and they relegate the HR functioning to somebody much lower down the hierarchy. The first hire for Marico was HR head, So HR plays a very, very important role, as equally or more important role than any other function. So there is a war for talent, and you have to look at talent attraction like a marketing activity, not like a sourcing activity. You have to market yourself. What is the good thing about you which will help you attract talent? What kind of culture you need to build to retain talent? So I think all that is captured in detail in the book in terms of culture building and attracting, retaining talent, and how did we finalize the employee value proposition those days when we had to attract talent from multinational companies like Leo or the Proctors or any other FMCG companies. So one has to go much deeper, and it's not an easy thing to do, but I think when you do it and do it well, then the rewards are phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that comes out in more than one chapter in the book.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a running thread. But at this point, it's time for a pop quiz. All you participants, there's going to be an image on screen, and I want you to type it out. What do you think that image is for? If you've read the book, great. If you've not, doesn't matter. Harsh will then talk a little bit more about it, but we need answers. Mass killer nabbed. Obviously, it is connected with Harsh Mariwala. What is that about? Hey, Das, a couple of more lines, please, to help enable. Take a guess, folks. Hemal, no. Sham, no. Mass killer, in a way, yes, but not for this. Ruchika, can we have the next clue slide, please? The next slide. This is a clue. Mass killer nabbed. There is a Marico logo out there. Who is the mass killer? What are we talking about? Das, yes, you've read the book. You are close. You are close. Heyman Ruparel gets it. Gets a signed copy from Harsh. Recruitment ad for Marico. Thank you, Ruchika. Over to you. I'm an outlier marketer, Harsh. I love guerrilla marketing. And when I read that chapter, I just fell in love with it. Please tell us a little bit about it.
You mean the ads?
Yes, the ads.
Yeah. Yes. So when we, we had a very limited budget when we started Marico. We started with a share capital of 90 lakhs, no reserves. We inherited a business of 80 crores from Bombay Oil Industries, and I didn't have money to spend. So I went back to Ravi Gupta, who was earlier heading Trikaya, and Alok Nanda, and then told them that I want an ad which will create ripples. I want to attract talent, and the only job of this ad is to target it towards the job market and nothing else. So they came up with a brilliant campaign of 3 ads, which you may want to show it, which one was Mass Killer Nabbed, and something on Lalita Ji boycotts coconut oil, and one more ad. They had shock value, but they had its impact. With just 3 insertions, we were able to create an image for Marico, So I think that played a role. And many times when you don't have enough resources and when your aspirations are very high, that's where innovation happens. To me, this was a truly innovative ad.
Absolutely flowed. Rupak, your question next.
No, I mean, I have to agree, as someone who spent 20 plus years in the advertising business, I have to agree that, even today they would be considered extremely innovative, even though the bar has been pushed tremendously. So timeless in that respect. And when you consider the context, even better. Harsh, one of the things I want to talk about is something that you alluded to earlier, being transparent about failures and things like that, right? And again, I go back to that chapter, which is in the family separation chapter. Towards the second half of it, you describe the anguish, mental anguish, and there's a scene, and I'm not going to reveal it because I don't want to spoil it for the readers, especially because, as I said, it reads like a dramatic thriller. I don't want to pull out the drama, but there's a scene where you really display your vulnerability, right? And you show that, look, I mean, I might be this entrepreneur who's on the up and doing all of this, but you showed that, you can have a lot of stress. You have been extremely vulnerable, not just to your colleagues, but because you put it in the book, you're extremely vulnerable to everybody who's reading the book as well. And vulnerability is the best way to engage as well and make yourself very human. And that comes through in the book very nicely. But, it reminded me that as entrepreneurs, we are expected to be, and our organizations and the companies that we lead, etc., look at us as these, the leaders and sometimes you have to kind of put on a brave face, but sometimes you have to show your vulnerability, but that takes a toll on mental health. And I know that, while you were building Marico, at least, in the time that all of that happened, nobody talked about mental health. What even is mental health? Arey karo, chalo, aage badho, and all that, right? But ASCENT specifically over the past couple of years, starting with it being the theme of one of our conclaves, I think the last physical one we had was about mental well-being, mental wellness, and obviously the pandemic brought that issue to the fore for the whole country, right? And I wanted to talk about also the fact that you have ASCENT itself is focusing tremendously on mental health and well-being. And it's something that there's a toolkit that's also been launched for members. So I wanted to ask if you could just talk a little bit about how you perceive this and why it's important to you and why are we also doing it in ASCENT?
So I must give credit to the ASCENT team. I also run one more non-for-profit initiative, which is much larger in terms of its resources I spend on, and my daughter looks after this, and that's Mariwala Health Initiative. And that only concentrates on mental health. This is something which we started 6 or 7 years back, realizing that the price we are paying, the country is paying for mental health is huge because it results in lower productivity. It has a huge, I think it goes in billions of dollars, it causes unhappiness. Worst case scenario, it means loss in life through suicides. So it's a huge issue which we are facing, and it is not addressed in a proper manner by the healthcare authorities, government, and one has to do. So there are many NGOs which work in this area, and we are a grant agency in this area. We work with 26 organizations. We are the biggest grant providers today in the area of mental health, and those who are interested in that, they can visit the Mariwala Health Initiative website. There is a report every year we publish. We do a lot of research. So this is a very passionate subject, and Arsa just caught on to this, being in touch with my daughter, and then she started working with them the last year's Conclave also had this. And then I think this app, we were just discussing this morning with the ASCENT team, and I said, if this is getting good traction amongst the ASCENT members, why don't we market it overall to attract more entrepreneurs, and just have this through social media, have a PR campaign, if this is really helpful in terms of an app, but this is a big issue. And, the pandemic, as you rightly put it, is an accelerated trend. In many cases, it has accelerated. The trend which was going, it has gone multiplier effect, whether it's e-commerce or digital meetings or whatnot. So I think that's something which I'm very passionate about, and the team has done well in terms of, they've done internally without me getting into it. They've interacted with the MHI team and then developed all these options and apps,
Well, absolutely important, Harsh. See, as the CEO for over 2 decades, ASCENT Foundation provided an answer for me in terms of who can ask me the hard questions, which is my trust group. But likewise, if my associates or even other entrepreneurs have questions on mental health and well-being, this is a brilliant initiative that needs to be given its PR value. That we will
so one more thing I forgot to mention, I think Rupert mentioned about the vulnerability. This is one area where I was not sure whether I should write about it. And then I bounced it off with 1 or 2 office colleagues. And they said, actually, this is a big positive for you. This is what attracts the book. At that time, it was much more in rough format. And they gave a huge endorsement to write this vulnerability. So I think I just got positive encouragement from people who might given the book that this is a must. And I was not sure how will it get accepted or whatnot, So I think the basic thing is we are all human beings ultimately. And we have our own emotions and own set of vulnerabilities.
No, and it's come out very well in terms of the way that you've written it. I think people really will feel, and it'll resonate with people as they read that part.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We have the first question coming in from Nilesh Gandhi. How does one set up effective goals for himself and for the organization, and set up the reporting mechanism with periodical revision and reset? Well, Nilesh, the answer is in the book, but you've got Harsh right in front, and Harsh.
It's a question on which one can speak for 1 hour, but because we have a lack of time, so we have a very detailed process of goal setting in the organization. Maybe if I can request Nilesh to send to the ASCENT team, and I'll send you a goal setting book. But basically, we have to have simple goals which are achievable. Don't have goals which have too much stretch, because then you'll give up if you're not nowhere near achieving. So have simple goals, have 4 goals, have measurability at the end of the beginning of the year. How will you measure what you achieved? And then review the goals every 3 months or 6 months, because if there's a change in environment, you have to change the goals. If pandemic happened, then you can't say that these are my goals, because you have to change because it was beyond your control. So the key thing is to have realizable goals, having the right degree of stretch. And we have 2 levels. One is basic and another is outstanding, So basic level, come what may, you have to achieve. The outstanding level has a stretch, and they are easily measurable. How will you measure the goal is also defined at the beginning of at the time when you set goals. And then ultimately it gets converted to variable pay and all that. But if you want, I can send you a whole booklet, which may be too much for you. It'll be about 50 page internal booklet of Marico, which I can send it to you. But I think this in brief is my answer to your question.
Well, Harsh, Nilesh is already beaming and smiling. I'm sure he's going to reach out to ASCENT and through to you. Rupak, your turn now.
I have a question which is right here from Ramdas. And it's an existential question, actually. And Ram asks, has there ever been in Marico history a near fatal moment for Marico? And if so, what was the situation then, and how did you handle it?
When I hear the word fatal, that means the organization's future is in doubt. That's what I'm making out the question. No, luckily there has not been any fatal moment. In my own history, I don't see any, touch wood, no fatal moment. In terms of my own, every year, last 40 years, I have grown in top line, every year. So you have to have growth mindset. More or less out of 40 years, I may have grown in profit in 38 years, because the business which is consumer products is known as a defensive business. If you are able to grow top line, you will grow bottom line. It is not subject to fluctuations in a commodity like a risky business. It's not a commodity business. It's far more defensive business, and that's why we get far higher valuation in the capital markets. So no, I don't see any fatal moments, because I think ultimately it also boils down to the risk taking. What kind of risks are you taking in terms of your growth? And I'm not saying that one should take risks, but it has to be deliberative. It has to be calculated, and many times when it comes down to risk taking, you have to, you can prototype that, if the risk is very big, and especially in those days, new product launches would mean 20 crore advertising budget, distributing it all over the country to many outlets. You can prototype that by selecting one city and, distributing in that city and advertising only in that city. So I'm saying you should, if the risk is very high in terms of financially, you can tone it down by prototyping. If the prototype action standards are achieved, then you can scale it up. And what we do is just to de-risk, again, Ramcharan has taught me that we have what is known as strategic funding. If you're making a profit of 100 crores or 100 in a year, then in a year, we will take risk up to 20 crores in terms of our advertising cost or whatever, in terms of losses. So that's a cap somewhere there. So to that extent, we would be able to protect our margins. At the same time, we would be able to drive growth through new initiatives. Luckily, in our business, because it is defensive, the need for fatality, and not only me, but any other FMCG company will not go through that phase. We don't require big capital for expansion. So it's more thinking through the consumer needs, consumer insights. We can get most of our products manufactured through outsourcing. Our risks are more marketing risks and distribution risks, and not capturing consumer insights. You can't have a Me Too product in FMCG. It will not succeed because you have to do something innovative or pioneer.
Thank you for that. And so Ram also will be in touch with ASCENT. I think, are we done with our...
I think we are done. We've got...
we're done with our three prizes, are we? Yeah.
Yes, we have. But there's one question that's come in from Dr. Pramod Solanki. HR at the heart of business, where did this thinking come to you and from what time? Dr. Solanki, the answer is all there in the book. That's my biggest learning and takeaway from the book, is to relook and assemble my team starting from the HR strategy head. But this is all about Harsh and harsh realities. So Harsh, the question to you, HR at the heart of business, where did this thinking come to you and at what time?
So it came basically through, as I mentioned earlier, my belief in talent had gone on getting reinforced. And how do you get good talent? When it came to Marico, I had to attract a completely new team. So it has to be done through HR, So there's a big linkage between talent and HR, because HR is the route through which you get good talent, in terms of attracting talent, giving the right image and leveraging good talent. So, I mean, there is a close link between talent and HR, and that's how HR came into the fore. And it's just not attraction of talent, retention of talent, culture building. So talent, HR plays a very, very important role in any organization's journey.
Right. One question, Harsh, it's something that I thought of earlier, and we had started to talk about it, but then I think we moved into another discussion, which was, I mentioned that the board and the governance part, right?
Yeah.
Talk about your board of advisors, and I remember now when I was reading, there was something about how not too long ago, it was perhaps in the past 10 years sometime, when the board asked you for that 3-year strategic plan.
Yes.
They were not clear on something, and there was some challenge from the board, and you had to kind of really get things together.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, it's assumed that the board knows a lot about the company, and the board knows, but board interacts with the company in a structured manner once in a quarter, in most companies. And many times, you are on board of 4 or 5 different companies. So sometimes you forget what the company does and what is the strategy. So what we have done is just to keep the board better informed. We have a monthly update to the board in terms of how was the month. But in addition to that, the board is not clear what is the organizational strategy. And it was there in my mind, it was there in the team's mind. So we wrote down something which between me and my team, and then I discussed that with Ramcharan. Ramcharan told me that you come to Berlin by the night flight. I met him at the airport. I spent 3-4 hours with him, and we worked out a strategy, 2-page strategy document, just a 2-page. And then he took a flight. So I just went to meet him in Berlin for 3 hours. And I came back and he went somewhere else. But I think what happened was that the strategy document got captured, which very simplistic manner talks about what is our business. And we said that we are in beauty and wellness in FMCG through products and services. Where will we operate? So again, defines and why will we win? So again, I'm talking of because of pioneering initiatives or because of innovation. Where will we not operate also? Because then there are boundaries, because there is a temptation that, okay, some opportunity comes in, we will go into that. And that temptation happened earlier to me when we launched Revive, which is a fabric care product. That's the only product in our basket, which is non-beauty and non-wellness, So, but it's continued because it's a product which I had launched because there was a personal need for me to start clothes. So I think again, we are saying that where will we not operate? And which geographies will be, and why will we win? And all that is captured in 2 pages, and that got shared with the board, and that got critiqued. And now every year in a board retreat, which is there at the end of the year, we again discuss the strategy, because strategy is not cast in stone. It can change within environmental changes. So if you need to change, then we may change the strategy document. It's not something which is completely fixed for decades,
Good. Now, Harsh, I have a question related to the ASCENT Foundation. That is how I got introduced to you and the entire part. How did the book talks about it, but I'd love for you to share some words about where the ASCENT Foundation came about and how it has formed.
So ASCENT Foundation is a peer-to-peer platform for those who are not ASCENT members or don't know what ASCENT does. It's something which came from my personal end, because I wanted to give something back to the society. And I thought that, and I like doing different things compared to others. I don't like to give a donation to a hospital or to a school, which normally is the way to give charity. I wanted to do something which is known as active giving, where I wanted to spend my own time. And I spend about 10-15% of my time on ASCENT. I identified entrepreneurs as something which I can give something back. I can't take a subject which I'm not good at. So I decided that I have to work on entrepreneurs, And then I went through some sort of a learning. So I started, first my initiative was to have women entrepreneurs only in Bombay, to have contests and all, but to realize that the number of women entrepreneurs were very, very small. And today also in ASCENT members, we have, I think, 15% of members are women entrepreneurs. I hope it increases. But I wanted to create a bigger impact. So I said, now I have to go beyond women. And then that's how I began in Bombay. And it's a journey which has happened over the last many years now. It's grown. I think today we have about 700 plus members in ASCENT. And now, because of the virtual meetings, we have now extended to all India. So anybody who's on this program and anywhere you are in Bombay, India, you could join ASCENT. Just apply by going into the website, ascentfoundation.in, and you'll get all the details. So it's something which is funded by me, but more than funding, I think is the time which I give, which is more important, So I get involved with the team. Of course, I don't spend all the time. All the credit goes to the team to manage this. But I give my inputs in terms of monthly meetings. If there is an occasion like this, or if we are planning conclave, I go into all the details of the speakers. I also use my leverage networks to get speakers. So I enjoy doing it, because if entrepreneurs can learn from each other, and if they're able to scale up, then I would have done my bit in terms of adding value to the economic growth in the country, as well as addressing issues like employment, unemployment, and things like that.
Lovely. For the rest of you, ascentfoundation.in is to go and check it out. And there's Rupak, myself, the ASCENT team, and a whole lot of Ascenters here that you can talk to. There is one question that's coming in, but may I request Ruchika to put up a feedback form? It's going to take you less than 30 seconds to enter, ladies and gentlemen. But this is an ASCENT tradition that every event is measured, calculated, analyzed, and done through. So there's a feedback form that comes, and we'd request you to go ahead and take 15 to 30 seconds to enter it.
Somebody asked a question. Is it ASCENT or ASCENT? It is ASCENT.
ASCENT, yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, you ascend. So first you join.
Don't confuse now.
There's a comment from Ram that Ascent Foundation, especially the trust group format, excited me so much and was the sole reason for me to join. Ramdas, you're not alone. Rupak is out there as the first opening batsman. I'm joined in the middle order, and we've got a whole lot more to go. And together we will. At this point, we would also like to thank our outreach partners, AMTOI, Fiki Flow, Mumbai, India Business Group, the Marico Innovation Foundation, and the Madras Management Association. Rupak, one last question from you, your takeaway with Harsh.
Is that all the time we have? Yes, it seems like.
We've got 5 more minutes. We've got 5 more minutes.
Okay, great. So, Harsh, I like the fact that you end your book in a very structured manner, which is you sum it up in a way. You have your key milestone moments, and then you have your key, I think you call it your maxims for life.
Correct.
Present to somebody else. Somebody's asked this question also above, and maybe we're not answering it directly, but indirectly we are. I think Sanjay Kumar Singh had asked about one key learning from your life. Instead, perhaps, maybe it's a hard thing to ask you to do, but if I were to ask you out of, I can't remember, I think there were 10 maxims or 8 maxims.
8 maxims, yeah.
So out of those, if you had to say one key takeaway, and maybe I'm not being fair, if I'm not being fair, disregard my question and more, but what do you want to leave the reader with if somebody shut the book and a year later remembering, I read Harsh's book. That's
my God. It's difficult to choose one. That's why I brought it down to 8. But the key ones, I would say, leveraging your strengths, taking risks, and grit. Grit to me is very important. Don't give up easily. Every person will have failures, but if you have grit, which is a combination of passion and determination, perseverance, you will try hard and you succeed. And finally, have a purpose in life. You can't just, you're not there. You've been sent to this earth with something. You have to give back something to others. So you have to have a purpose in life.
If I may, Rupak, because I have not answered my takeaway, page 86, look for a niche where one can rapidly assume leadership position. 90, organizations lack as a deliberate investment for new expansion. That was a brilliant learning for me. You save a specific percentage. I'm not going to tell what it is. You'll have to pick up the book, ladies and gentlemen, that if you've been doing something for 4 or 5 years, there is definite possibility for you to go ahead. But my biggest takeaway is scaling up the right team for the right job, starting with HR. And Harsh, I frankly loved the vulnerability that you allowed us to take a peek into your heart, not just the brain, which is there all through. And that also is the Ascent credo and maxim that, hey, that's what it is all about. This is mandatory reading for my top management as well, Harsh. Thank you very much for writing in. For the rest of you, we're not done yet, Harsh. You're going to have a closing talk. But for the rest of you, we have started an Ascent book club. We're meeting at noon on the 15th of August to go through this book in a lot more detail. So you've got 3 more days to pick it up. If not, join in for the ride, as some of us who've read are going to discuss the book in a lot more detail. But that's what I have to say. Harsh, closing comments from you.
No, I must thank Rupak and Praveen, both of you. I think you've done a lot of homework by reading the book and asked very pointed questions, which are, I think, very, very interesting. And I'm sure the readers, and not the readers, the audience has, I think, enjoyed this conversation. I also enjoyed it. So all I can say is those who, all I can assure you is that the book will have take-home value. So please, if you want to buy the book, you can go to the Amazon, buy it. And if you like the book, then please post a review on Amazon, because I was told that you need at least 100 reviews for the book to fly. Praveen, I need to get some tips from you in terms of how to market the book, but I've done a lot. But I think the key thing is, I'm writing this book not for any financial reasons or anything. I just want to give something back. And, if more people read the book, then to that extent, I would feel more happier, because then to that extent, there'll be more take-home value. I was earlier, somebody told me you have to give a lot of free copies, but the publisher, a lot of people told me don't give free copies, because the moment you start giving free copies, people start undermining, thinking that it is not selling. So they just put it in a corner and nobody reads it. So I said, okay, let me take up a challenge of not giving free copies or limited free copies to very, very few close friends. And then balance, let me just try and ensure that I'm able to excite them to buy a copy and read the book. Because if I buy it, I was told that people will take it far more. The commitment levels to read will be much higher. So all I can say is, if you buy a book and if you read it and if you like it, then please post your comments on Amazon.
Yeah, thank you. I've just put the link to the book, to the Amazon link to the book in the chat. So please do click right now.
And there we have the QR code.
Oh, sorry, I ruined it with the link.
That's fine. That's fine.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been, thank you, Harsh, for really candid insights, goes along beautifully with the tone of the book. You said thank you to me and Praveen for doing our homework. Honestly, it was no work at all. It was a pleasure. And for me, it was reading it the second time. And it was a pleasure again. I don't know if there are more than 3 books in my life that I've read more than once. So thank you very much. And
thank you. Thank you, both of you. Thank you.